Thank you. Thanks, Leah. So my name is Giovanna, and I'm happy to be a partner with Green in the City, and the library is very happy to partner on this third year of this program. And I brought some of the books behind me that are available to borrow from the library, including books like Waste Free Kitchen, all about how to pack your freezer and the difference between decomposition and contamination of food. So lots of great books to borrow, and we're happy to help with that. So tonight, before we start, we want to take this time together for an acknowledgement. So we'd like to acknowledge that we in London, Ontario are speaking to you from the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Huron-Wendat, Lenape, and Neutral peoples. This land is covered by several treaties, including Treaty 6, the London Township Treaty of 1796. We acknowledge historical and ongoing injustices that Indigenous peoples endure in Canada. We are grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank the generations of people who have taken care of this land. Together and going forward, may we recognize our own responsibility in the stewardship of this land. If you'd like to learn more about Treaty 6, London Public Library holds materials on this and other treaties and land sessions, including copies of original maps. I'll include the titles of these materials in the chat, and as well, library staff can help you find any of these materials. So thank you again, and I will give it back to Leah.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Joanna. Welcome to Green in the City. I'm Leah. I work at London Environmental Network, and I will be the facilitator for this evening. So I'm just going to start with some introductions, and then we'll dive into the presentations. So first, I just wanted to go over the agenda for the evening. So after I do my introductions, we're going to hear from our main speakers, Soligo and Vivian de Giovanni, and they're going to speak for 20 minutes. And then we're going to have our breakout room, which is a fun, small group discussion for 10 minutes. And then we're going to hear from Anne Boyd from the City of London for 10 minutes. And then we're going to hear from Cara Ranen from Reimagine Co. for 10 minutes. And then we have 15 minutes at the end for some Q&A. So throughout the session, if you have questions, please write them in the chat box, and we'll get to as many as we can during the last 15-minute Q&A period. So now I'm just going to introduce our speakers for the evening, and then I'll pass it off to our main speakers. So first we have Soligo, who is the manager of solid waste services at the County of Wellington. Dos is a member of the board of directors for the Solid Waste Association of North America's Ontario chapter, and is currently serving as the chapter's vice president and safety ambassador. He is passionate about the environment and the waste industry, and is an active participant in a number of related committees, initiatives, and organizations. Also speaking with Dos, we have Vivian de Giovanni, who is the circular economy specialist in solid waste resources at the City of Guelph. She's working with the Our Food Future office, which is under the Smart Cities initiative, to reimagine the value of food loss and waste. And Vivian has worked in the waste management field for over 30 years in both municipal and nonprofit sectors, with experience in both program and policy development. As I mentioned, we'll hear from Anne Boyd, who is the manager of waste diversion programs at the City of London. Anne has helped design and implement food waste reduction strategies, studies and pilot projects in collaboration with community partners. And Anne is a member of the Ontario Food Collaborative and former member of the Municipal Waste Association Food Waste Reduction Working Group. And Cara Ranen is the co-founder of Reimagine Co. and has been living a zero waste lifestyle for the past 2 years with her husband and co-founder of Reimagine Co. and their 4 children. After having spent 15 years in real estate, Cara left the industry in 2018 with aspirations to do more for the planet and its people. And Reimagine Co. was born out of a desire to create a sustainable community in London of passionate people wanting to create a more beautiful world for themselves and the next generation. So without further ado, we're going to start with our first presentation. So I'll stop sharing my screen, and then Dawson, Vivian, you're good to start at this point.
Thanks so much, Leah. Vivian and I are so grateful for the opportunity to speak to you folks today about the issue of food waste, which is so prevalent in all of our communities. Vivian and I are going to be profiling how the County of Wellington and the City of Guelph are working through the Our Food Future initiative to realize Guelph and Wellington's vision to become Canada's first technology-enabled circular food economy. In November 2017, Infrastructure Canada launched a Smart Cities Challenge to encourage communities to adopt a smart cities approach to improve the lives of residents through new partnerships, innovation, data, and connected technology. Our proposal, which became one of the 4 winners of a $10 million award, focused on how the community could come together to create a living lab of possibilities using social innovation, data, and technology towards a common vision. We call this initiative Our Food Future. Next slide, please. We chose food for a few reasons. While we are a community dedicated to agriculture, food, and sustainability innovation, Guelph and Wellington is also home to 1,600 food businesses and entrepreneurs, more than 40 agriculture-related research centers, and in addition, we really wanted to address the societal and citizen needs related to food and food waste. Now I'll pass it on to Vivian.
So right now, the need has never been greater to rethink what we're doing. Our current food system is broken. It's unsustainable, and it perpetuates systemic global and local problems. Today, 30% of food produced never makes it to the plate. Globally, 1 billion people are hungry or undernourished. By 2050, the global population will increase to 9 billion, adding even more pressure to food systems. Wasted food results in 193 tons of greenhouse gas emissions, equal to the emissions generated by 41 million cars driven continuously for 1 year. In Guelph, Wellington, approximately 67% of residents don't consume a healthy diet. 1 in 6 families experience food insecurity, and the cost of healthy food has increased 27% in the past 8 years. It's really important for smart cities projects to have measurable outcomes and clear lines of accountability to the community. Our project laid out 3 very different goals. We want to ensure that everyone in our community has access to affordable, nutritious food required to live healthy, productive lives. We want to create new jobs and vibrant economic opportunities within a circular, collaborative ecosystem. And we want to solve food problems using smart technologies, digital agriculture, and strategies that find value in the material that our current system treats as waste. We're moving from a take, make, dispose linear model that does not often take into account the impact or cost to the overall economy, to people and the planet, to a circular model where we keep materials and nutrients in the food system. So to achieve our food future goals, we've established 9 Pathfinder projects grouped into 3 work streams. The first work stream is nutritious foods, the second is circular businesses and collaboration, and the third work stream, waste as a resource, and that's the one we're going to be focusing on today, Dawson and I. There's 4 projects under there. Develop and share circular business tools and services, launch a reimagined food campaign, increase the circularity of carbon credits within the food system, and increase circularity in municipal waste systems to drive innovation along the food value chain. And now Doss will speak to a few of the specific Pathfinder projects under waste as a resource that he's working on in Wellington County.
Thanks so much, Vivian. I'm going to highlight 3 projects related to tackling food waste, as Vivian mentioned. Wellington County's new green bin program, food waste audits and interventions, and a Recycling Council of Ontario pilot project. Next slide, please. So on May the 14th, 2019, Our Food Future was named one of the winners of the Smart Cities Challenge, as I mentioned. Only 1 month later, the County of Wellington chose to add a green bin service to our curbside collection program. This decision aligned with the goals and principles of Our Food Future, such as reducing food waste and recovering value from organic waste material. Next slide, please. Following the delivery of over 32,000 green bins, kitchen catchers, and information brochures, our new curbside collection program began in July of this year to a lot of excitement from county residents. The green bin service was embraced by our residents as there are significantly more organic materials that are accepted in the collection program compared to what you would put in a backyard composter. For example, the green bin will take meats, bones, dairy products, paper towels, certified compostable food packaging, and many other items that are able to be placed in the green bin. The green bin also can reduce the ick factor, which prevents some residents from backyard composting and allows many who don't have the space or the wherewithal to do it at home. Further, many residents who backyard compost do not do so in winter, either because their composter slows down in the cold weather and doesn't break the materials down, or because they don't wish to trudge through the snow to access it. So the green bin service resolves those issues with this convenient year-round operation. Next slide, please. There's a lot of environmental benefits as well to this new service. We initially estimated that the green bin service would collect and divert 2,000 tons of organic waste in the first year of the program, and that collected tonnage would increase over time as residents became more accustomed to the service. 2,000 tons diverted annually over the life of our landfill site actually represents an additional 2 years of landfill capacity for Wellington County. And based on the first 3 months, it actually looks like we're going to collect and compost close to 3,000 tons of organic waste in this first year. So that, combined with the leaf and yard waste services that were enhanced by County Council this year, means that our landfill site could have its life extended by up to 5 years by some estimates, and our consultants are saying perhaps even more. This is especially important these days as Ontario's in the midst of a capacity crunch with landfill. There's only 12 years of landfill capacity remaining in the entire province, and if the border to the US closed to Canadian trash, that would go down to only 9 years of capacity in total across the entire province. So now more than ever, it's truly important to extend the life of landfills and divert waste away from them. Lastly, our collection fleet is powered by compressed natural gas, which is going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, particulates, and nitrous oxides. So it's going to both improve air quality and reduce the county's impact on climate change. The diversion of organic waste further improves the climate change situation because organic waste degrading a landfill produces methane, which is a very potent greenhouse gas. Next slide, please. Our curbside collection program has also come with some challenges. The change to every other week waste collection hasn't been met with enthusiasm by all residents. Certainly, we've heard complaints that some residents do not appreciate the change to every other week garbage collection, especially for those of us like myself who have a child in diapers or they have other pets and manage other smelly household waste. So let's make promotion and education more important than ever. It's difficult to concisely explain the rationale for the addition of the green bin program to residents, in a concise fashion, discussing things like landfill capacity and best practices, the fact that every other week garbage collection is an emerging best practice with the use of weekly blue box and green bin service. And sometimes communicating this can be challenging to some residents. So we're taking a lot of effort to do so, and as well to provide odor management tips. All of this is to say that it can be challenging for some folks to accept change or to change their habits. but our residents do seem to be doing so to a large extent. But this is still a work in progress to bring everyone on board to these new changes. Next slide, please. So one of the projects under Our Food Future that I'd like to highlight is the food waste audits that we're conducting. These audits are being completed in partnership with the consulting firm AET Group, and in particular, we have been working with Paul van der Werf, who's from London, and who attained his PhD from Western University with a focus on food waste. We've been working with AET to collect garbage from 150 homes around the county in a representative mix of urban and rural areas from all 7 of our member municipalities. An audit was done in the spring before the green bin service began, with a second audit completed this September after the green bin program has been up and running for 2 months. Food waste is being separated from the garbage, and in the county represents 31% of the waste stream of the households that we sampled. Next slide, please. So food waste is being further sorted into avoidable and unavoidable food waste. And these are some terms that Vivian's going to discuss in greater detail in a later slide. Excuse me. We will assess the impact of the green bin on the waste streams in order to provide an enhanced understanding of the dynamics of having access to a green bin program. For example, it's possible that residents will actually throw out more food waste with a green bin service, as they will do so with a guilt-free understanding that this material is going to be composted. So we're going to assess the results and look to design and implement interventions. These interventions will be tested against some of the households, some of those 150 households. We're going to have treatment and control groups, and we're going to determine which are the more impactful and feasible interventions that can be expanded to all households in the county in order to shift residents' behavior to continue to reduce food waste and encourage the use of the green bin for the food that is in fact wasted. Next slide, please. I'm also going to discuss the Recycling Council of Ontario pilot project. The Recycling Council of Ontario is an organization that works to inform and educate all members of society about the generation of waste, the avoidance of waste, and the more efficient use of resources. I'm going to refer to the Recycling Council of Ontario as RCO. RCO has been working in waste management since 1978 and is rebranding as the Circular Innovation Council, as this name is more reflective of their circular economy works, which are not just limited to Ontario. RCO is working with Our Food Future to build upon a pilot project they did in Durham region in 2018. This expanded pilot that we're working towards implementing is going to provide a regional collection model for the industrial, commercial, and institutional sector. Residential curbside collection is so efficient and low cost because the costs of the service are spread out over the tax base. Next slide, please. However, organizations in the IC&I sector, the institutional, commercial, and industrial sector, choosing to divert their organic waste can secure a service provider to collect and transport this material, but it comes at a great cost because there's not always a short distance between stops. If we can build a model which reflects the efficiencies of municipal curbside collection, this is going to drive down the costs of organics diversion significantly. Working with private sector service providers, the pilot aims to have collection, transportation, and composting activities at a similar price point to landfill disposal. The more businesses and organizations we can get on board, the lower cost this will be for everyone. Further, the University of Guelph has received a grant from the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs to study this pilot and provide analysis of the data and metrics coming out of it in order to assess its performance. It is hoped that this pilot, armed with these metrics that the university will provide, can be replicated as a suitable model for other regions or communities in all sorts of other jurisdictions. The pilot project, when running, will bring together numerous stakeholders from private service providers, municipalities, the University of Guelph, and participating businesses and organizations, and will provide commercial entities a more economical way of diverting and composting food waste. I would like to hand it over back to Vivian.
Thanks, Doss. I'm going to profile a few of the waste as a resource projects that the City of Guelph is currently undertaking. We've been working with the University of Guelph since 2013 on food waste tracking at the residential level. We've conducted surveys, waste audits, and interventions within various neighborhoods and with specific groups of residents. Our latest joint food waste audit was with the Guelph Family Health Study called Supper Savers. It was a group of approximately 30 households in Guelph that agreed to participate in a study that would pre-audit their waste streams, garbage, recycling, and organics for 4 weeks, followed by a series of interventions, and then 4 more weeks of post-audits. But then COVID hit, and the pre-audits had already been completed, but because of COVID, only a few interventions were done, and then followed up with a post-audit. I just found out that later this year, a series of more interventions will be done, followed by another audit. So I wanted to talk just about the definition of avoidable versus unavoidable food waste. So the definition of avoidable food waste is components of the organic waste stream that would have been edible prior to disposal. So examples, moldy bread, leftovers, we talked about this earlier on, right? Vegetables, fruit leftovers. Then unavoidable is those inedible components of the food waste in the organic stream. So your pits, bones, shells, banana peels. So think of it like the whole apple versus the apple core, or the potato versus the potato peelings. This was taken from the latest waste audit, the top 15 avoidable wasted foods. So how many of those look familiar from your household when you take a look at those? And a lot of them are fruit and vegetables. So this schematic demonstrates the impacts of household food waste on economic, health, and environmental factors. The cost to families is quite significant in terms of money wasted, calories lost, and greenhouse gases emitted. One of the things that's a part of all of these studies at the university is looking at attitudes, behaviors, and lifestyles affecting food waste. This sort of gives you a snapshot of the results from a food waste survey conducted by the University of Guelph. You're looking at how waste-aware households are, how do our busy lifestyles affect the amount of food we waste, what about best before dates, and there's a lot of guilt about wasting food. A lot of research has been undertaken in this area for a number of years and is ongoing. This was developed for a food waste symposium in 2016. And you can see some of these things are quite relevant still today. Improving household food literacy, looking at portion size packaging, incorporating imperfect or ugly fruits and vegetables. So we have made progress, but there's still lots of progress to make. Now I want to talk about a really exciting project that's recently been launched under our Food Future through Provision Coalition, which is a Guelph company that helps food and beverage companies grow by making food sustainable. They recently launched something called Repurpose. It creates circular food experiences, turning byproducts into new food products and experiences in stores and restaurants and delivered to your home. So they are creating gourmet circular food experiences from unavoidable food waste. The country's first off-the-farm gourmet restaurant meal was unveiled through Repurpose. It started with spent grain from Wellington Brewery. The spent grain was then incorporated into feedstock to feed insects at Oreca Solutions. The insects were then fed to fish just up the road at an onshore aquaculture facility, Izumi Aquaculture. So like all animals, fish poop, and this poop is very high in nutrients. So the fish waste, a natural fertilizer, was sent to Smoid potato farms. Not all the spent grain from Wellington Brewery was used with the local farms or the bugs, so the Green Revolution took some to create bread. A brewing scientist from Escarpment Labs helped Grain Revolution work out how to create a sourdough from waste grain and yeast. So now they had bread, fish, potatoes, and beer. They brought in chefs from the neighborhood group who own 3 local restaurants in Guelph and Wellington, and they created 3 creative menus from these circular ingredients. Sourdough crusted fish and chips at one restaurant, a trout sandwich at another, and a gravlax trout on sourdough at a third. And what started as a crazy idea from the team at Provision Coalition to create a gourmet meal from waste has become reality, bringing together 7 companies to create the first off-the-farm gourmet meal experience in maybe North America and quite possibly the world. The Circular Food Experience was the first project for Repurpose. So going forward, Provision will work with our food future and companies in the region who are looking to be part of this circular experience. Another project we're working on is a food waste challenge. It's a civic accelerator challenge put out through the city. It was launched last Thursday during Waste Reduction Week, and it's currently the only way we could figure for the city to gather data on the food waste going into our green carts in the city of Guelph, other than through visual or manual waste audits. Those are very labor intensive and only consider a small sample of waste the city collects. To design effective waste reduction programs, we need better, more consistent data to identify trends and measure change. The challenge statement asks, how might the city of Guelph consistently collect detailed household level data on avoidable food loss and waste, or incorrect sorting in the organics collection stream, that's our green cart, that can be used to help households understand their own food waste and inform citywide food waste reduction projects. I know that's a big mouthful, but we're putting it out into the universe to see what can happen. So the technology solution will automate the waste audit process, ensuring data is collected on avoidable food waste, as well as organic stream contaminants for every organic cart each time it's collected, while ensuring the strict protection of residential privacy. The successful applicant will partner with the City of Guelph Solid Waste Resource Department to design, prototype, and test a solution. The solution should leverage existing technologies used by the city's waste collection fleet. That's GIS software, RFID tags on the collection carts, we have scale software, and we have a waste collection app to connect the food waste data to individual households. So that's our overview of some of the exciting projects and collaborations that are emerging from our food future. We thank you for the opportunity to provide an overview of the Smart Cities, Our Food Future initiative with the City of London's Green in the City program. For more information on all of the Our Food Future projects, visit foodfuture.ca. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Vivian and Doss. That repurposing initiative really caught my attention. That's so interesting. I know that people in the chat were really interested too. And with that, Caitlin, you're good to put us in breakout rooms. So Anne, you're welcome to start your presentation. We're all back and we're ready to learn.
Okay, Leah, thank you. Are you seeing the full screen okay?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Good evening. I'm Anne Boyd and I'm with the City of London, and I'll be talking about the planned development of the city's food waste avoidance strategy this evening. I'd just like to say thanks to the London Environmental Network, the London Public Library, and the City of London for organizing and highlighting this important topic and for the opportunity to be part of this discussion. Welcome everyone, and thank you for attending tonight. Today I'll be providing some background information, talking about the work we are doing at the City of London, including some local research projects and the city's next steps. On a per capita basis, more than 1 ton of waste is produced on average each year in London. This represents all waste, including waste from homes, industry, business, and institutions. When we consider only the waste coming from London households, which is my focus today, in London we have a 45% diversion rate. This means that 45% of all waste from households does not go to landfill, but instead it's composted, reused, reduced, or recycled. Our goal is to achieve a 60% diversion rate by 2022, noting that this schedule is to be revised due to COVID-19 and a recommended new timeline will be presented to Council in November. To achieve the 60% goal, the City has developed an action plan. The 60% Waste Diversion Action Plan is part of the City's long-term resource recovery strategy. It includes Council's commitment to 60% diversion by the end of 2022, and the plan outlines specific actions that we will need to do to reach that goal. The action plan includes 11 guiding principles. Highlighted are the top 3 that we received the most community support when we sought feedback and engagement from the community in the process of forming the action plan. The most important principle to the London community is that the plan make waste reduction the #1 priority. The community also prioritized that the plan be socially responsible and financially sustainable. The action plan has 3 areas of focus and 21 action items, ranging from policies and bylaws, such as further reducing the garbage set-out limit, to implementing a citywide green bin program. The 3 areas of focus are shown here: organics management, more recycling, and waste reduction and reuse initiatives. Developing the food waste avoidance strategy falls under the organics management area. London's 60% action plan has been developed against the provincial backdrop of Ontario's 2018 document, the Food and Organic Waste Framework, which includes a 3-level food recovery hierarchy. First is preventing and reducing food waste in the first place. Next, to rescue and redistribute excess food to feed people. And third, to ensure that the remaining food waste be diverted from landfill for beneficial uses, such as being turned into compost. London's food waste avoidance strategy will depend on understanding food waste in terms of what it is and how much there is. Our data comes from the measured quantities that we send to landfill, and by drilling down on a household basis to understand what's in the garbage. We do this with waste audits of a sampling of the garbage that's set out to the curb. This waste is divided into about 100 different categories and is all measured. The food waste is divided into 12 categories of avoidable and unavoidable, and each of the categories noted here from bakery to other food. The food that is audited does not include the food waste that is home composted or poured down the drain, because that's not set out to the curb. Here's some images of what avoidable food waste looks like and the approximate costs associated with the amounts shown here. I think we all agree that it's pretty familiar looking stuff to most of us. Using waste audit data, we can estimate how much food waste is contained in the average garbage bag headed for landfill. Of all household garbage collected in London, 60% of it is organic waste, 60%. 35% is food waste, 2/3 of which is avoidable food waste, and the other third is unavoidable. When considering all residential garbage, food waste represents a very large percentage and a large quantity to be managed. On a citywide basis, this represents an average of about 100 kilograms per household per year. And the cost of that is upwards of $600 per household per year that is wasted. Across London households, this represents as much as $100 million per year of wasted food. Other impacts include lost nutrition and an increased carbon footprint. Looking at waste audits of municipalities with green bin programs, we find that as much as 50% of the materials placed in the green bin is food waste. 50%. And another 30% is non-edible food waste. That's the kind of waste that really belongs in the green bin. And 20% is compostable paper products. What are the implications of this data for the development of London's green bin program? The green bin is a costly program, and when considering that 50% of the contents represent avoidable food waste, there is a potential savings if we can reduce this. It is important that we get ahead of the green bin rollout with a food waste avoidance plan so that avoidable food waste is not produced in the first place and does not end up in a green bin or a garbage can. The city has conducted pilot projects to understand why food is wasted and people's attitudes towards it, and most importantly, to gain an understanding of what would motivate people to reduce. The projects were completed in conjunction with Paul Vanderwerf, who was a PhD candidate at UWO at the time. As part of the pilot projects, a survey on behavior and attitude was completed with 1,200 London households. Respondents reported that on average, they threw out food on 5 days each week, or the equivalent of about 6 meals per week. The level of control over food was perceived as an important factor in how much food people wasted. For example, respondents believed that if they were not responsible for planning, shopping, or preparing meals, that they had much less control over food being wasted. Knowledge of how to buy, prepare, store, family size, and the age of household members were reported as factors in how much food was wasted. Respondents noted that buying too much or spoiled food were the top reasons for food waste. 60% reported that saving money would be a motivating factor for change. A US study noted similar reasons for why people wasted food. The top reasons here being concern for food poisoning and wanting to eat only fresh foods. So our next step at the city is to develop and implement a food waste avoidance strategy that will take into account economic losses, disposal costs, environmental and social impacts of food waste. Work on this will begin in early 2021. We estimate that between 200 and 600 tons can be avoided at a cost of $150,000 to $200,000, or roughly $1 per household. This could result in a savings of approximately $1 million to $3 million across London households. And the estimated greenhouse gas reduction is about 3 tons for every ton of food waste avoided. Finally, I'd like to share with you the results of a small online survey that we conducted on our website. We found that 80% of those responding said that food waste avoidance was very or somewhat important to them. And I'd just like to leave you with 2 questions to consider. How important is reducing food waste to you? And what actions do you plan to take? 2 final slides here. This one, to encourage you to learn about London's Climate Emergency Action Plan. To provide feedback to the City of London, check out the website and take the survey there. And then finally, thanks again to Len for this series. Visit their website for the upcoming events. 2 other important projects to engage with are noted here, Project Neutral and My Wild Green Home. Please check them out.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. Great. So yeah, check out those ways to get involved. Thanks, Anne. We'll have Kara now bring up her slides and share her screen.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Leah. Thanks for having me, and thanks to Len for putting this on, and to the other speakers for all their information. I knew, looking at the other people that were going to be talking today, that we get some really great resources from them as to what is happening at the higher levels. And I wanted to cover some easy switches and ideas that we could personally do in our day-to-day lives. So some of these tips you might already know, but I know for myself, I need reminders often. And I hope that if you do already know some of these tips, you'll appreciate the reminders to ensure you're doing everything you can to reduce the food you're throwing out. And I also hope that there's a few tips and tricks in here that you don't already know. Oh, why is this not letting me? Oh, there we go. Okay. So as Leah said earlier, I'm from Reimagine Co. And we are a package-free shop opened in 2018 with the aim of helping Londoners reduce their packaging waste. So in that time, we've also held over 150 free workshops, which are all geared around sustainability, such as repair cafes, a food foraging walk, teaching people how to compost, and then several events around food waste as well. We are currently in the planning stages of opening London's first package-free grocery store, which is set to open next month, which will not only allow Londoners to reduce their packaging waste, but also reduce their food waste by allowing you to choose how much you want to buy. And then version 2 of our store, hopefully in the next year or two, hopes to add a kitchen on site, which will just further to help reduce food waste, that we can turn foods that are close to their expiry into frozen dishes, ready-to-go meals, and soups or sauces. So I wanted to run through a few, like I said, easy suggestions here on what you can do. And the advice of planning well might seem like a simple one, and these suggestions should be pretty easy to implement. But with countless conversations with people tell me that it isn't quite so easy. In our breakout room, we talked about how today's busy lifestyles kind of get in the way. And someone had mentioned how technology is making us busier and busier. And this is absolutely true in my life and in a lot of people that I talk to as well. So while technology does make us busier, it can also make things easier. So there's a couple of apps that I've put up here. The first one is called Mealtime, and the second one is called Prepare. And so the first one, it allows you to input your likes and your dislikes, and then it will offer some suggestions for you as far as recipes. And the second one, Prepare, is really awesome. It's the one that I've been using recently. Their free version has over 100,000 recipes on it. I've got some screenshots coming up here, and it allows you, if you see things that are nearing their expiry in your fridge, you can type it in. It will give you ideas on what you can cook for dinner that evening. Another tip is to just do a daily or semi-daily review of the fridge to check for close to expired foods. And then you can plan with your new app that night's meal accordingly. And then, of course, getting creative with leftovers, soups and Buddha bowls, stir fries, veggie fried rice, and chili. So this is a screenshot of the app Prepare. And so let's say you have an abundance of pomegranate. I'm not sure why I typed that, but you've got an abundance of pomegranate, and you can type that into the search bar here, and it will give you a whole bunch of options that you can get that used up with. And then also, once you start adding them into your week, so you can plan your whole week, and down where the purple arrow is pointing to the shopping list, you can export that into a shopping list. So you take that with you, and you're only buying exactly what you're going to be preparing for that week. So my next tip is to buy ugly, which I believe Vivian brought up as well. And so my suggestion here is to just shop places that embrace ugly and imperfect foods, to teach your kids from a young age that food doesn't need to look bright and shiny, and that misshapen food is still healthy and nutritious, and in my opinion, more interesting. Grocery stores, we've probably all seen the pictures of bins upon bins of food being thrown out, or food being rejected from the producers based on their appearance. So, we know that consumers drive stores. So if you feel bad about that food being wasted, then you need to buy ugly food or talk to your stores and let them know that you want them to stock imperfect food. So only buy what you need. This is a picture of a bulk store. Something similar to this when Reimagine Co. opens up is what we will have. And so, you've got your new app that you've just downloaded, and you're trying out some new recipes for your family, and you come across, say, a spice, I think is a really common one that you don't have. And when you go to the store, typically your only options for buying spices is, say, 100 grams at a time. So, shopping in bulk allows you to buy just a very small amount and try it out. Or, obviously a single person needs to buy a much smaller portion than for us. We're a family of 6, so our grocery shop looks a lot different. So shopping in bulk just allows you to really have a lot more control over what's coming into your house, and then hopefully keeping it all used and not thrown out. So Reimagine Co., as I mentioned, we will have bulk bins like this, but we're downtown, and I know that's not accessible to everybody. So just about every corner of the city, there are bulk barns, there's bulk barrel, and then major grocery stores are also embracing these bulk sections as well. So you should be able to access that no matter where you are. And also just wanted to talk briefly about proper food storage. Gosh, I'm running out of time. I'll be quicker here. So dry is best. So just try to keep things just a small amount of moisture, but wetness is a recipe for waste, except for carrots, asparagus, scallions, and celery, which all do enjoy being stored in the fridge in some water for maximum life. Know your gassy fruits. So these are apples, ripe bananas, pears, and potatoes. All of these are going to give off a gas that will ripen everything around them. So you're going to want to store these away from your other produce. And then just knowing whether things should be on the counter or in the fridge, and letting things ripen on the fridge and then on the counter and transferring to the fridge once they're ripe, giving them a few extra days. Organizing well, know your fridge, know that the coldest part is normally up at the top. So you're gonna wanna keep herbs and lettuce away from the very top where they might freeze and go off. Keeping things in the proper spots, such as meat on the bottoms to avoid contamination, and never mixing fruits and vegetables in the crispers. And then just leaving space. So something, I know it's convenient to go to the grocery store once a week, and we do it as well. And as you can imagine, with 6 people, we come home and our fridge is quite full after going and shopping for everybody. But try and maybe even go to the grocery store a couple of times a week. You can give your produce some more space to breathe. This will allow proper airflow and give moisture a chance to evaporate, but also will just let you see what's in your fridge, and I think that's a big problem for myself personally. Something gets stuck at the back of the fridge, you don't even remember you have it, and before you know it, you can't use it anymore. Eat less meat. So the reality is animal agriculture is responsible for about 40% of crop losses. Globally, farmed animals eat 5 times more food than humans. And however, only 12 in every 100 calories consumed by animals is converted to meat, dairy, or eggs. Globally, over 1 billion tons of harvested crops are used to produce only about 250,000 tons of edible animal products. So the resources that go into growing and harvesting the extra food for animals are obviously having very negative effects on our climate. And while it doesn't look like food waste that you see in your bin, the effects globally are staggering, and we need to take a look at not only what we aren't eating, but what we are eating. And of course, veganism certainly isn't for everybody, but a lot of trends such as Meatless Mondays, when practiced collectively together, can have huge benefits to food security as well as our climate. Support local farmers. So more than half of all food waste occurs along the supply chain. On average, and even greater in the winter, fruits and vegetables travel about 2,500 kilometers to reach your plate in Canada. So buying locally and in season can help reduce the risk of food becoming waste before it gets to the shelves. I mean, think of the spoilage that happens between, say, Mexico and Canada, as well, that transportation emitting massive amounts of greenhouse gases. And you have the added bonus of supporting your neighbors. And then you can extend the life of the seasonal produce by canning it, freezing it, or drying. And just a couple additional tips, and then I will wrap up. Compost food that can't be saved. Of course, we've learned that we don't have a green bin yet in London, but there is I believe this is an app as well. If not, it's definitely a website, sharewaste.com, which looks to link up people that are either in apartments or don't have a compost with people who have spare space in their compost. So you can check that out if you don't have access to a compost. Tree as well has, if you just Google Tree Composting 101, there's a really great resource on their website that will teach you everything you need to know to get started. Flashfood.com, you can get some really great deals on food near its expiry date. And as well, use your voice. So I would say, ask your grocer what they do with unused food, and see if they're donating it. And as well, connect with your community. So Reimagine Co., LEN, Tree, Urban Roots, Middlesex London Food Policy Council. I mean, we're all in this together and we can learn together. Regarding community, Reimagine Co. is all about learning together and building community. And, we hope that if anyone has ideas for us on how London collectively can reduce their food waste, that you'll reach out and we can learn how to do better together. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kara. I really loved all those tips. And there was also some great discussion in the chat during your talk. So I guess we'll just get right to the questions. And we do have limited time, so we'll try to keep them, speakers, if you can keep them kind of concise but complete. And with that, I'm just going to start with this first question for Kara. So this question is, since COVID-19 started, the use of reusable containers has been discontinued with concerns about cross-contamination. Wondering how Reimagine Co. will tackle this issue. So Kara, you could speak to that a little bit.
No problem. Yeah, I do know a lot of places, some places, not all places, have canceled their BYOC container program. Bulk Barn had one, and they have not brought it back. Tim Hortons has not brought their program back. But there are a lot of places in London that are taking containers still, as well as zero waste grocery stores across the country who are all running on a bring your own container program. So we're working through our processes right now as far as what that looks like. We do at the Western Fair, we are open for bring your own containers there, and we've sent those policies to the health unit and had them to look over everything. So we are confident that we can do the same at the new location.
Awesome, they're doing the most. So this question is for Anne. So the question is, how would the city tackle food waste in large apartment complexes that already do not have great waste solutions currently? So if Anne, you could speak to that a little bit.
Well, I guess it comes down, there's two types of food waste, of course, avoidable and unavoidable. Ideally, the unavoidable would go into a green bin program once that's rolled out, or an organics collection program once it's rolled out to apartment buildings as part of the citywide plan. And in terms of avoidable food waste, I think it really comes down to the household level, and that's kind of what we've been talking about tonight. So it's behavior change and examining your habits to see how each individual family, each individual can reduce the amount of avoidable food waste they're producing.
Awesome, thanks. And we had a question like right at the beginning that was for Doss, and I think it's a quick one. So Doss, in response to the 12-year lifespan of landfills in Ontario, is this information publicly accessible? And if it is, where can you find it?
Hi, Leah. Yes, that information is publicly available. It's the Ontario Waste Management Association does an annual report called the State of Waste Landfill Report, and that report has talked about the capacity of the province, both in terms of how much is being disposed on an annual basis and how much is being shipped to the US. So in the chat box, I'll share an article that discusses the most recent landfill report.
Awesome, thanks. And also in our follow-up email for this event, we can share some useful links, and I can include that one. So thanks for sharing. And we had a question earlier. I'm curious about the decision-making process around not including diapers, etc., in the compost stream. I agree with it, but I've heard it can have a big impact on quantities collected and cost efficiencies. So wondering if DOS or Vivian could comment on this, and if Anne has anything to add too, but we can start with DOS, I guess.
Yeah, the county worked with our composting service provider, and they did not want that material in there. Of course, in diapers, there is a small amount of organic material, but there's also a large amount of plastic. And so that's going to become a contaminant into the finished compost. You know, through the process, that diaper is going to disintegrate into a whole bunch of pieces, and they're selling a finished compost product, and there's going to be bits of plastic throughout. So some municipal programs do accept diapers, but it seems from my understanding that most try to avoid taking that material.
Thanks. And I don't know, Anne, if you had anything to add about that.
A decision as to whether or not diapers would be included in London's green bin program has not been decided yet. It's a key decision that will need to be made. As Doss said, it's variable across Ontario municipalities. Probably most municipalities don't include it, but some of the big ones actually do include it. And I think it's a balance between convenience for people, because generally with a green bin program is reduced frequency of garbage collection. So for families who are using sanitary products and diapers, that does present a challenge for them as to having to hang on to that material for 2 weeks until they can put it into the garbage. But as Doss also said, it does compromise the quality of the end product of a green bin program. So it's an important question that London will have to look at.
Awesome, thank you both. And let's try and get through one more. I know there were some responses to this in the chat, but I wanted to see if Kara had anything to add about where in London we can find ugly fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, I saw that. No, there's, I know someone had mentioned Food Fund, I think, in here. I meant to mention it in my talk, but Food Fund is really great. And, you know, they're diverting a lot of that. I didn't know that that Loblaws and also No Frills is selling bags of non-perfect food. So thank you to who put that in there. I think, you know, I am seeing it more and more, but Food Fund is the only one that I know of that, you know, is really tackling that problem head on.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, thank you. I think with that, I just have a couple slides to share before we wrap up for the night. So if it is possible to share my screen and wrap up our Q&A. So thank you to all of our speakers. I really learned a lot. And I just wanted to, I hope you all did too. I really enjoyed my discussion group as well. We had some good conversation. So I just wanted to wrap up with sharing some ways that you can get involved in continued food waste reduction and in climate action. So in London, we have our London Climate Emergency Action Plan, and we have new opportunities for you to share feedback. So please visit getinvolved.london.ca/climate to find out those ways to share your input. If you enjoyed this session, remember that we do have 4 more workshops that are a part of the online Green in the City series. So next week, we're going to be talking about making sustainable transportation choices in the city. And you can register for all the upcoming sessions at londonenvironment.net/green_city. And lastly, thanks to our supporters, and thank you to everyone for coming out this evening. We really enjoyed it, and we'll be sending some follow-up information and links, some links that came up in the chat, and ways that you can get involved. So with that, I think we'll end the evening, and hope to see everyone next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doss. Thanks, Vivian and Kara and Anne. And thanks to the London Public Library, City of London, and City Symposium.
Thanks, Leah.
Okay, thanks, Leah.